I think this topic is important because this is a time when a lot of companies, actually it probably would have been a month or two ago, where a lot of companies would be hiring in order to ramp up for their busy season. However, if you make a misstep in your hiring and you don't have the right person on your team, it can be very costly to the company. Even though they're filling a void that you needed, it still can be really expensive if you don't have the right person on the team.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Deese.
Hey, and welcome to Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Today's a pretty exciting day for me. I have a very special guest that is joining me, and it's actually my wife, Kristen. So I'm super excited that you're here.
Sup?
She made the long journey to the studio today.
Through the backyard.
Yep. I was going to say 100 yards. It's not that far,
Nope,
but
definitely
whatever
not.
it is.
About 100 feet.
It's a little longer than that. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, pretty excited about having her here. So before we jump into the topic, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you? Don't make it all about me, though. I know you want to.
I've been in this home service journey for what feels like a really long time. And most of the roles that I've played in our journey have been financial related. I've always been on the number side of the business. And when we got to a point where I didn't have to be in the business on the day-to-day, it gave me an opportunity to step back a little bit and help other business owners in that area. So I developed a business called The Virtual CFO, and I help business owners really use their numbers as a tool and get their accounting department trained and all that fun stuff. So I end up doing that more than I am in the day-to-day of our current business, which is awesome. And then I get to do fun stuff like speaking at conferences and doing podcast recordings and stuff.
Yeah, you've got a pretty big conference you're speaking at coming up later this year. Which one is that?
Yeah, this year I'm speaking at Pantheon, which is Service Titans User Conference, which is really exciting. That's coming up here in the fall, which is...
It's going to be pretty awesome.
I know. I'm starting to put that talk together. And
do you know what the topic's about, or is it still...
Oh, it's top secret.
Okay. All right. Top secret.
Top secret stuff.
Top secret. So we'll get into this a little bit later, but technicians rarely understand the numbers. Like they know when they have money.
Yeah,
and
by
they know
whether
when
or not
they
they
don't.
can, by whether or not they can make payroll. Yeah. I recognize that numbers are not the strong suit and spreadsheets are not fun. And I totally get that. I happen to love them all, but I understand that not everybody is like me, and that's okay. And so I like to partner up with these business owners and just help guide them through that process, because it's not something that they would have learned in trade school or out in the field. But my website is just KristenDeese.com. So there's a bunch of really cool information on there. And
Kristen, Kristen.
En. That's right.
And if they don't know how to spell your last name, they're not looking at the podcast cover close enough.
Exactly. We do have the same last name.
Awesome. And she's been the cheat code for me because I'm not the detail numbers. I'm like, can I just go drive the business and you tell me where the money is going and whatever. Super excited to have you here. We were talking the other day about hiring, right? And there's a lot of murmuring around at conferences and on all the Facebook groups and about bad people, or
there's nobody wants to work.
Nobody wants to work. It's the same thing. And
yeah,
we won't get into that a lot. But what we were talking about was the cost of a bad hire. And I think as leaders, sometimes it's super easy to overlook the cost, like the actual cost of a bad hire.
So at the time of this recording, we are midsummer, early summer in Florida. And HVAC, early summer in Florida, means that we're pretty stinking busy. And there's a lot of companies that are in the same shoes who are seasonal like that. So I think this topic is important because this is a time when a lot of companies, actually probably would have been a month or two ago, where a lot of companies would be hiring in order to ramp up for their busy season. However, if you make a misstep in your hiring and you don't have the right person on your team, it can be very costly to the company. Even though they're filling a void that you needed, it still can be really expensive if you don't have the right person on the team.
I think it's easy to get in that rabbit hole of, I need someone to fill the truck to just go to Miss Jones's house. And that's not really the case. But let's start by talking about the tangible versus the intangible of a bad hire.
Yeah, there's the tangible expenses that you can easily calculate. And then there's the intangible expenses that are a little bit harder to put numbers to, but do cost money in the long run. So tangible examples would be like their hourly rate. It would be the payroll taxes that you're having to pay on them. It would be even the hours that somebody is spending to find them, interview them, and onboard them. Even if that person happens to be salary, it's still an expense because they're doing that when they could be doing something else.
Right. I wonder how many hours, have you ever done any research on how many hours a company spends to hire a good technician?
I know only from past experience because I have been the hiring manager at one point in time. I will say that it depends on your process. If you are the company that reads every single resume before you make a decision on whether or not you're going to bring them in for an interview, then it's going to take many hours. If you are the kind of company that does open houses, which we will do a whole nother podcast on that episode on this.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
A whole nother topic to talk about. But you can shave off a lot of time by doing open houses. But regardless, I would estimate around 10 hours would be a good guess.
That's what I was going to say 10 to 12.
Yeah, just based on, we're going to identify good candidates. We're going to bring them in, talk to them a couple of times. Hopefully
talk to them a couple times.
Hopefully a couple times. Hopefully we do not offer them the job on the first interview. We're going to hopefully do reference checks. We're going to hopefully run all the backgrounds and DMVs and all that kind of stuff in advance, which, by the way, it costs money to run a background and a DMV. So there's another cost.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
We're going to spend the time to onboard them, which is usually a couple of hours of time. And then we're not even tapping into the amount of time that we're putting into training them. Depending on if they're a technician and they're already seasoned, they're going to know how to do the job, but we want them to know how to do the job our way. We want them to know how to do the software. We want them to know how to do it our way. And so we're taking a technician who is already on board to train them. So there's cost in that as well.
There's definitely a lot of companies out there that will hire a technician and they're like, oh, they know our software. And within 15 minutes, they're in a truck.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
I'm not going to lie. We might have done that a time or two.
We have, and we got burned almost every time.
Yeah.
Never did that ever work out.
Yeah.
Because, and you just said it, it's doing it our way. We don't care how you did it at fill in the blank, plumbing, HVAC, electrical company. There's a certain way that we do it. And even if they run the same software,
there's still internal systems that might be different.
There's different accesses that different companies allow different technicians to have. So yeah, so that's a good tangible list.
So even if you, just to throw numbers like at the wall. Okay, so let's say that you're a month into, we'll say a technician. You're a month into a technician and we just want to see roughly how much it's cost us so far for 30 days of this person to be on board. And 30 days means that they're probably not eligible for benefits yet. So none of that has probably started. That's a whole additional cost. And there's no overtime involved here. So let's assume that they make $25 an hour. Let's assume that they've worked 160 hours, which is 4 weeks, about a month. That's $4,000 right there, $4,000. And then, of course, we have to pay payroll taxes on it. That's, I don't know, $800 maybe. Let's assume that we had a manager of some sort, service manager, office manager, somebody has spent about 10 hours doing the interviews, doing the onboarding, doing the things, right? Yep. So $30 an hour for a manager, probably $300. So we're at $5,100 in 30 days. And we haven't talked about getting them uniforms, getting them a tablet, doing their background check, doing their DMV, right? So you're several $1,000s into this and you're only 30 days in. what else could you do with, we'll say, $6,000?
And how many hires? How about this? How many bad hires, for the people listening, how many bad hires have you made in the last 12 months? And I think I think those numbers are awesome. I think there's a lot of other tangible, and we'll get into the intangible too, but let's say you make 10 bad hires a year, which isn't hard to do. That becomes a really big number.
Right. Now you're looking at $60,000 in expense, literally down the drain. And that's only 30 days. How many companies actually identify and deal with a bad hire within 30 days?
My guess is going to be not very many.
Not very many. Especially, okay, so you can even talk about how did you get into the position where you have a bad hire, right? Yeah. I'm probably jumping ahead on our little on our outline. But a lot of times what happens, especially, again, because we're coming into the busy season, we have hired out of desperation because we need to fill the position, and we've probably ignored a few yellow flags on the interview. And so now we're here and they're doing the job, but they're just not doing it as well as we would want them to do. So we'll let them go another month and another month. And now you take that $4,800 that you're paying in payroll and taxes, tack on some overtime to that because it's summertime.
Because now you know there's overtime.
And then you're going to go 4 or 5 months into it and not deal with the issue. Now you're talking 20 grand of an expense on a bad hire of one.
And we're talking about hiring 10 bad ones.
Right.
So I want to dig into that a little bit more, the flags and identifying and how do you know if you had a bad hire. But before we jump into that, I would like to take a quick pause for our amazing sponsor of this show. You might know her.
I met her a few times.
KristenDeese.com. And she's the virtual CFO. So let's hang tight, take a break 1 second, and we'll be back. If you're like me, reading the financials falls at the bottom of the priority list, unless there is no money in the bank. Then I dig in and get even more frustrated because, let's be honest, I don't even really know what I'm looking for. If this sounds like you, then I'd say it's time for you to get a virtual CFO, and I have just the recommendation for you. Kristen Deese is the virtual CFO of the home service industry. She is an expert in all the numbers and will remove the overwhelm so you can use your numbers as a tool for growth. She'll even train your in-house accounting team because, after all, how could you possibly train someone to do something that you don't really know how to do yourself? You can find out all about how she can help you take the F word out of your financials by going to thefwordofbusiness.com. All right, so we're back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the cost of a bad hire, because none of us want to do it. We all want to hire people and they just come in and they're amazing and they're perfect and they do everything right. This business would be so easy if it weren't for...
Wouldn't all businesses be so easy if that was the case?
Customers,
yeah.
Governments.
Yes.
If we could figure out how people just send you money, I feel like it's a Ponzi scheme, though.
Yes. Or GoFundMe.
Or GoFund. Huh. Could that be a business model? I don't know. All right. So let's come back. We were talking about cost of a bad hire. We went over a little bit of tangible. So now let's talk tangible.
Intangible, or otherwise, sometimes you could call it an opportunity cost. Intangible is that what is it costing your company in a way that is more difficult to monetize, but still has an effect negatively on the company? I think the biggest intangible cost of a bad hire is culture. Company culture takes a hit.
I would agree.
For sure.
I would agree. And I think culture is such an important thing in a business now. And I feel like that's shifted a lot over the past 5, 10, 15, 20, however many years. Culture is, when we talk about guys have a staying to 18, 24, 36 months, where back in the day, they got a job and they had a career there. I think a lot of that has to do with culture, and culture is more important to the team members now, right? So again, when they talk about nobody wants to work and all that stuff, a lot of times it's people now want to work with people that align with their values. So from a company, we talk a lot about, we want people that align with our values. We also have to align with theirs too. So yes, I agree with you. Culture is wildly important. And especially as we start bringing in the next generation, that's very important. Who doesn't want to like where they work? And we were talking about, there was somebody we were talking to, and I can't remember who it was. And I think it was at an event, and they were talking about wearing the shirt to Walmart or whatever store they were going to, and that they were embarrassed.
Their company shirt.
Their company shirt.
Yeah.
And it was like, God, that is, I can't imagine working for or owning a company to where you're embarrassed to wear the brand. That's terrible. So anyways, what's some other
intangible? Okay. So culture gets damaged when we have somebody on board that doesn't need to be on board because we're telling the current employees that we're almost telling them that we don't care. And it makes the current employees not want to work as hard if they see that there's a bad hire on board or two bad hires on board that don't feel like they're pulling their weight or they're not getting along with people or they're upsetting customers or whatever. And we're not doing anything about that as the business owner. We're telling the other employees that it's okay to be like that. And we've seen instances where top performers have left companies because a business owner or manager hasn't dealt with a bad hire. So now,
think about that call.
Exactly. So now from an intangible standpoint, this is pretty tangible. If you lose a top performing installer or salesperson or whatever,
He was generating probably somewhere between $6 and $1 million, depending on what role they're in, a year.
And you lose them because you're damaging culture by not having the right people on the team. So that's obviously a very large expense. And when that top performer leaves, they're not going to tell you they left because you didn't fire. They're going to tell you that they left because another company offered them another $1 or $2 an hour.
Or a better opportunity, which then you find out. You're like, you went to work where?
Yeah. So anyway, so culture, that's a huge one. You can sabotage productivity across the board in your whole company if you have people on board who aren't the right fit.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have internal culture. Then you have external culture, which is the quality of service that you're providing to your customers, the tone that that person might be taking with customers. When we talk about technicians and a home service industry in general, the customer is not bringing their thing to us to fix like an auto mechanic. We're going to them to fix it, which means every time somebody leaves our shop in a uniform and in our van, it's a brand is leaving the door.
Yes, yes.
And so if we have somebody out there in the field who's not representing the brand, going back to not wanting to wear their brand in public, if they're not representing the brand, then that is an opportunity cost that is very hard to calculate because you could be losing customers, you could be losing upsells, you could be losing the return. We might do that one job, but if that customer never comes back to us, that is an unknown amount of opportunity cost that we're losing because we don't have the right person here.
I think that is a fantastic point. And yes, so how many trucks you have is how many brands you have. And so if you have your superstar, we'll call him Beck, when he goes in to that house and he does a really good job, that is the brand. Yes, they know Paradise,
but that's what they're tying the brand to. Correct.
That one technician, and it's awesome.
Yep. So that's another intangible that is even difficult to calculate. If you're not getting a customer back, we've talked about the $10,000 customer, right? We want a customer for life. We want a $10,000 customer. That was before we were in HVAC.
I was going to say, and that's just plumbing.
That was before we were HVAC. It's difficult to get a $10,000 customer. So, and this was actually like 10 or 15 years ago. So
this has been a long time ago.
Anyway,
we're talking about this.
So
stakes are higher now.
Stakes are higher now, inflation, whatever. But that meant that we would have to have multiple jobs and multiple things at that customer's house. And the only way to get that is to provide a service that's good enough that makes them want to come back to us when they need something else. And again, if you don't have a good hire going out there representing your company, then they're not going to come back and you're losing the future sales of that customer.
I'm going to say this. There's people out, and I've done this. You go to a restaurant and you go to that restaurant and you have a awful experience. The food's good. The server is like super not attentive, rude. You ask for something. It's like kind of an attitude, chances are you're not going back to that restaurant. Location was great. Food was amazing. So it's the same with our business too, where we can provide great looking brand and we can respond, and the people in the office answer the phone. They do a great job in the follow-up process and all the things. And honestly, they may even give you a 5-star review based on all the other things, but there's a good chance they're not going to call you back next time.
So I was following that along and then going to say, even if they don't give you a bad review, they might not necessarily come back either. So in the restaurant example, I have to have a really bad experience to leave a bad review, like really bad.
Yes.
But I will not come back. I will just not say anything. And then I just won't come back.
So I'm going to give this example. We went to dinner last week or the week before with our business partners. There's a steakhouse in town. We wanted to go. We hadn't been there. They had been there. because we went a couple times, like 2-hour waits.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
And
I'm not waiting 2 hours,
yeah.
but I'm excited when I see a business have a 2-hour wait. I think
Yes.
it's cool.
Yeah. It's exciting for them.
And so we went, and the food was outstanding. The server was nice, but we constantly had to ask for things. My drink is empty and has been.
And it's a white tablecloth steakhouse. Like this, it's not
going to spend a couple $100 eating there. But I will say, next time we go to have that type of experience, I'm not 100% sure that I would go there.
Yep.
It's the same in our industry. Like they checked all the other boxes. But if I'm eating a tomahawk steak, I want a drink with my tomahawk steak, or silverware, or a napkin. I want all the things. So,
yeah. Okay.
So,
how do you know if you had a bad hire? How do you know if you have made a bad hire?
Are you asking me?
Sure.
The interviewer has become the interviewee. So I'll say for me, again, I've been around this business for a long time. Usually my gut, I can tell, but there's also certain flags that will reveal themselves early that you can start to watch. That would be one thing. And I think a lot of us go to our KPI, but typically it should be by the time a technician is in their own truck, and it could be even customer service, there's a process before they're in 100%. A lot of flags and things you can catch beforehand.
Yeah. So we talked about making hasty hires when we're busy because we just need somebody to fill the role and get the jobs done and get the installs in and whatever. I think a lot of times the bad hire was identified before they even came on, but we overlooked the signs that we saw because we needed to get somebody in quickly. But like you've talked about before, you can see a yellow flag and address it during the interview process and call it out really early on so that we're not playing taboo or we're not afraid to mention something like a pattern that we're seeing. So, for example, a yellow flag might be that there's been 3 jobs in the job history in the last 3 years. Okay, in our industry for technicians, generally speaking, there could be some pretty good explanations as to why there was 3 jobs in the last 3 years in history. But instead of just glazing over it, you can call it out, identify it, even tell the person this trend that I'm seeing is that you're only sticking around for a job for a year. So tell me about how you plan to make that different here. And try letting them know that you recognize the pattern right there at the beginning instead of waiting and not saying anything. And
because now you got your bad hire or even maybe they're even a decent hire. That math's
it's still ticking. Every day they come in, it's ticking.
Yep.
Ticking away.
Still rocking.
Yeah. So beyond KPIs, you can usually tell, you should be able to tell.
Can I give an example of a yellow flag?
Yeah.
So we had a technician. I don't know if I had talked to him, if they had already hired him or it was during the process or if he was already hired, but it was he'd been there like a day or anyways. And as we were going over his paperwork, it was during the onboarding. He was there for the onboarding. We have a whole onboarding process. And I told the technician, I said, for me, in my past experience, what I've noticed is that when technicians, and this is for the HVAC side, or technician from the HVAC side, and it can be plumbing as well, is when they come from smaller companies that are like chuck in the truck plus one kind of deal, that communication and teamwork is not a really major thing in those businesses. They are really important and crucial to our business. And I just identified it. Listen, I just wanted to say, not saying you can't do it. I'm sure you got it in you, but this is what I've seen in the past. I just want to make you aware. If you ever have any struggles or need any help, let us know. We'll be happy to help. And I think he was an okay technician, but he ended up not sticking around very long. We had to let him go because of that. He was not able to, but then once that tough conversation of letting him go happened, it had already been talked about at the beginning and then documented. And then it was a little bit
he was
better of a process.
Yeah. The struggle was, we have a lot of people in the company who are involved in the software system, and there's a lot of people that need to know what's going on in the job. So it is crucial that the technicians put in as much information as they can so that when somebody opens the job and looks at it, they can see what's going on. And when you're in a small company, that is a little bit less important because if you are the only technician, then you know what's going on with all the jobs and there's no need to inform anybody else what's going on.
It doesn't make him a bad person.
Right,
It doesn't make him anything.
Right.
But
it's just
in
different.
order to be on this team,
Correct. Yeah.
This is what's important, which is communication
Right.
and documentation and pictures.
It was a struggle for him to do that and break that habit. And because it was brought up and addressed early, it wasn't a ding on him when it was brought up early. It was, hey, we're making you aware of what we're seeing in hopes that awareness would be enough for him to make a change in his habit. And it wasn't. And because it was brought up early and it was documented, it was really easy to just be like, you know what? This is just not working out. And we had everything we had.
You work for a smaller company to communicate.
Yeah. Documentation is huge. So you document everything, even the interview, anything that you see on the interview that might be a flag, anything you see on the interview that might be really exceptionally good. Maybe you see leadership skills happening during the interview, but you're not hiring for a leadership position. You can document that because that would be good to know in the future. Okay. So now.
Red flag. We talked about yellow and red flags.
Yeah. Okay. We have different red flags.
We do, but just give an example of what you, because I don't know that everybody uses, we talk a lot about the flag system, but it's probably because we live on the Gulf.
We live on the,
So our whole world revolves around, okay, if it's red flag, we know we can't get in the water. And if it's yellow and if it's green. So that's why
and if it's purple, there's sharks.
And if it's or jelly, or it could be jellyfish. You could either get stung or get your leg bitten off.
Yeah, either one. Okay, so the flags, red flag, in my opinion, when I talk about technicians, a red flag would be an unacceptable background or a DMV report that does not allow us to insure them. Those are 2 red flags right off the bat. Transportation to and from work, they need to have their own vehicle. If they don't, that's a red flag to me. If I do a reference on somebody, and because you can only you're really handicapped when you do references, but if you get a chatty Cathy on the phone, you might get some good information.
Yeah.
So if you call and you do a reference and you ask whether or not they're rehirable, even by the tone of their voice, if they say no, you can know whether or not it's a serious no or like a, yeah, no, whatever, no. So if it was a no on the rehire, that would more than likely be a red flag.
Yeah.
There has been times where I have red flagged candidates for their social media profile.
Yeah. I'm going to tell the story.
And
this is a long time ago. It's been a long time ago. But we had somebody, and I want to say this person it was a management position is what it was.
Was it like office manager or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And pulled up the profile, and like the main picture was a beer box over the top of their head.
Like a hat.
Except
like a
covered
crown.
their face. I don't know.
Oh, were they looking through the handles?
I don't think that they were concerned about seeing anything. But
yeah.
Which, here's the deal. Everybody's got their own opinion about, social media, it's your page, you do whatever. And that's fine if you're that way, but don't have your page be public. Have it be private.
Yeah. Well,
if you're going to do that kind of stuff and that's how you use social media, it's perfectly fine. Make it private.
Yeah.
Don't make it for the whole world to see, because believe me, customers check that on team members. We've had customers tell us before, even technicians come in and they're like, oh, I see you like to whatever. And they're like, because they get a text message that has their,
that has their name on it. Yeah.
It takes 30 seconds to go to Facebook or Instagram so anyways, that to me was a red flag, not because this person was like hanging out partying. Got no problem with that, but be not stupid about it.
Yeah.
So for me, acumen and anyways, we chose to not choose that candidate.
Yes. No, we let her work for the competition. It's okay. Okay. So here's an example, a real life example that has happened to us a lot, not a lot of times, but a pretty good amount of times. And it goes about like this: multiple days and weeks in a row, my wonderful and lovely husband, who runs different departments at different times in the company, will come home just really frustrated with an individual, super frustrated. And because I'm not in the day-to-day, it's really easy for me to say, why don't you just let him go? Just let him go. I don't want to hear about you complaining. You coming home every day to complaining about this person. So why don't you just let him go? And the response is usually like, we got to get through this one more week, or so-and-so's going on vacation. I just need to get through that. Or I've got 3 more installs I need to do, and then I can let him go. There's just always something that we're just hanging on for a little longer and a little longer.
Can I interject for just a moment? Yes, that is not a now thing.
Yeah.
But that back in the day, man, it was easy. And it wasn't just that. It was even loaning out money.
Yeah,
they would come to me and to get money because they got to get to work. And
Yeah,
I would
they would come to
justify-
you and ask for gas money.
Right.
Right.
They would ask you.
No, because I would tell them no.
Which now none of them ask me anything. It's fine. It's fine.
Anyway, moral of the story is we justify having the person on payroll because we feel like they're plugging a hole, even if they're not plugging it as well as we want them to, or that we wish they would. They are plugging a hole, and it feels easier to keep them. Cheaper to keep her. It feels easier to keep them than it does to go out and do all the steps to try to find somebody that will be better. And in the process of doing that, we are doing all of the intangible costs that we already talked about with opportunities and culture and all that kind of stuff. And so when we have identified that we have not the right person on the team, we have to do the process again and run the ad, do the interviews, do the thing, and try to find the replacement. And
it is easier to not run a call than to send not the right tech to a call. And I know from past experience, that is sometimes a tough pill to swallow, but it's true. Now I would rather just not run the call and we may lose the customer either way, but I would rather lose them because they weren't available than lose them
for a bad service.
Like we were talking about with the steakhouse, right? Like we've been 2 or 3 times. It was 2-hour waits. I'm like,
right.
I'm not waiting for 2 hours.
But we come back and try
But
again.
I will come back and try it again where had I gone in and it waited 4 hours to get crappy meal, I wouldn't go back. Not that's what happened there. It was a really good meal.
No, obviously, if you've identified that you don't have the right person on the team, you want to identify it and take care of it as soon as you can, because as we've already talked about, it's expensive. You already should be doing one-to-one meetings with this person because they're in a probationary period anyway. And so whatever issues that are coming up should have already been addressed and documented multiple times. And it provides opportunities for additional coaching. There's so many times in busy season again where they fog the mirror, they pass the background, they can drive, and they know how to install a unit. So we send them out in the truck. And then we never...
4 out of 4.
Yep.
Shoot, yeah.
Heck yeah. We never meet with them. We never talk to them. They're just out there doing their thing.
Yeah.
And we don't really have a grasp on what's going on until somebody else in the company comes to us and says, hey, by the way, do you know that is doing XYZ? And is frustrating everybody and whatever.
Or multiple customers.
Yeah.
Because so you get one bad review.
I was talking about the employees.
No, I know, but I'm saying, you get it from the employees and the customers. You get one from a customer,
Mm-hmm.
that's an easy to explain. Then you get a second one, you're like,
Yeah.
and then you get a third one, and then you start to pay attention. Well, by that time, how many customers did they piss off that haven't complained or aren't the kind of people? Because listen, there's people that are like, I don't give 5 stars. Everything was perfect. Here's 4 stars. Come on.
I know.
But then on the flip side of that, like you said earlier, for us to go have any kind of service, especially a restaurant, for us to leave a 1-star review, it has to be, it's got to be bad.
I can name on one hand anytime that I've ever left a bad review. Like it's very few. I'm so much more inclined to leave a good review when I have a good experience than to leave a bad review. And I understand that the general consensus is if you have a bad experience, you're going to tell 5 people. If you have a good experience, you're not going to tell anybody. Something, whatever the statistic is on that.
You're close.
Something like that.
Super close.
But there's so many more things that you're losing by the people who aren't saying anything than the people who are.
Yep.
So
that is true. All right. So we covered a ton. And what I know, because you said it in this recording, is that we're going to do another podcast about this.
There's actually a couple topics that came up that we can do podcasts
There
on.
really is. And I think we should do all of them.
Okay.
We got nothing but time.
Sounds good.
And the commute's not too bad to the studio. So
I can do it about once a week.
Okay, I'm in. All right. So, Kristen, thank you for coming on. Thank you for hanging out with us. It's always fun. I feel selfish that I get to talk to you like this all the time. I figured that the Freedom community should be able to talk to you as well. Some good advice, some good things we talked about here. Listen, at the end of the day, go implement something you learned. If you have this new knowledge and you don't implement it, it's worthless. But if you actually learn it and then you go implement it, it becomes wisdom. So it's pretty important. So get out there, implement, grow your business, have it serve you, not the other way around. And until next time, this is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Deese. See ya.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.